We're on to our third favorite Week 17 matchup. This might be the most controversial one yet. I don't think we agree on this one. So, what's this episode going to be like? Who knows? Welcome to Summer School Club Fantasy's best ball podcast, streaming exclusively on YouTube. I am your host, Austin Amandolia. With me here, as always, is my co host, Matt Record. As I mentioned, this is a CRAM session episode where we are focused on a single Week 17 matchup. So don't forget, hit like and subscribe so you get coverage of every single one of these matchups. We have two more after this. What teams are going to be in our top two matchups? We're on our third ranked game, which is the Seattle Seahawks versus the Chicago Bears. And when I told my co-host about this, when I told Matt about this, he was like, "Why? Why is this in the top three?" So we have some different feelings about this one, which is going to be fun to talk about. So first, let's talk about basic stats and betting lines. All my words got jumbled there. This game has a 45.5 point over under, which ranks seventh out of the 16 Week 17 games. Chicago is minus 3.5 point favorites in this matchup. These teams have some pretty good playoff matchups. Their combined weeks 15 and 16 total is at 185.5, which ranks fourth out of the 16 matchups. The ADP of the first player, interestingly, is the early third round in DJ Moore, which is pretty low for some of these matchups. This game is outdoors in Chicago, which is another part of the reason Matt doesn't like this matchup as much as I do. But we gave it a rating of 7.1 out of 10. Matt, tell me, I'm going to make you talk great about this matchup first. How does this matchup go well?
Yeah, it's a pristine day in Chicago, the end of December. Caleb Williams lives up to the 101, hype that he has. Like, he's obviously a very talented quarterback. The jump from the NFL is easy for him, and he utilizes all of the great weapons that he has to put up a bunch of points. And then Geno Smith turns back the clock a few years and is, a dynamite playmaker. I would assume, though, that for this to go well, the running game there for Seattle looks really good. And kind of, the Kenneth Walker train hits the station. And again, you have a bit of a shootout as sort of Vegas thinks it might be.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. I think it will come down a decent amount to also to the quarterback play, like Caleb Williams figuring it out in his first year, having a decent season. Geno Smith making a bounce back from last year. I think that'll play a big role in how this matchup moves forward. And I think the pass catchers will be an interesting option in this match, or an interesting thing to track in this matchup for how it hits its ceiling. Like, there's a lot of elite pass catchers. Both teams have three receivers that could all, I think, be number one receivers on any team or on some teams in the NFL. You got your Justin Jeffersons of the world out there. You can't quite beat, but a lot of these guys could be number one receivers on other teams. So they all pop off. Passing games are moving well, even though it's going to probably be cold in Chicago. On the flip side, now Matt, you get to tell me all of your negative feelings about this matchup. How does this matchup go poorly?
So, I mean, take the players out of it. Like, it's December in Chicago. Like, this could be a -8-degree day with, a wind chill of -50 with a bunch of wind. And no matter who you have out there, it's going to be a freaking grind. So, just weather aside, Caleb Williams doesn't do super great in his rookie year. The Bears bears it, whether it be through coaching or whatever. And no, they can't move the ball at all. And Geno Smith is bad. Maybe Geno Smith is just bad. And then the Seahawks can't score. Like, again, this is one of those ones, especially with the factor of the weather and the question marks at QB. Now, I'm a pessimist when it comes to these kind of things. Maybe they're going to be great, but I just don't see. I feel like there's a greater chance this week does not, or this game does not go well than it does well.
Yeah, maybe I should have thought more about the defenses and the weather when I when we ranked these, because I was like, I like the offenses. That's good enough for me. But you're right. The way this matchup goes poorly is if the weather is really bad, which I guess you can tell that I've never been to Chicago. Is the takeaway from this video. I think the other thing is that these defenses kind of take a step forward and continue the trajectory that we would expect, given the fact that Mike McDonald is now in Seattle. He was overseeing defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens last year, who was one of the best, if not the best, defenses in the league. So that defense took a step forward. And the Chicago Bears, their defense really started rolling towards the end of the season. So if those two defenses are doing well, that could really impact the upside of this game. But there are still players to stack and correlate. I think even my co-host would admit that, even though he doesn't like this matchup. So, Matt, who are your favorite players to stack and correlate?
For the record, I love the fantasy assets, just this particular game, So with that being said, I mean, there's so much value there in that Seahawks offense. It's insane. So Metcalf going up the board at wide receiver 21, especially in a best ball scenario where he doesn't like you obviously want people to be consistent each and every week, but he just has to go off a few times because he'll probably be your wide receiver too, and you're feeling really good about that. But then Tyler Lockett goes up the board at wide receiver 54. Like all he's done his entire career is be a consummate professional, and be a safety blanket for whoever's being quarterback there. So you can get both of them or any one of them. And then Geno Smith being QB 23. Like, he's in a very similar spot to me as Daniel Jones, where it's like a couple years ago, you're feeling really good about having him. Now the shine's kind of worn off there. But 23, like Geno Smith has produced at a top 15 quarterback level numerous times in his career. So you can get him as your QB3. It's kind of a free stack for those other guys that you get already at a pretty decent value. And I really like the Seahawks offense.
Yeah, I think that's really fun. For me on the Chicago side, I actually really don't mind whenever I end up getting both DJ Moore and and Keenan Allen. That is happening. Like that's possible in these lineups now, and I don't mind it. I'm here for it. I think it's a totally fine way to go. And then getting Cole Kmet later at tight end. I actually am in on him this year. I've historically been out on him. I haven't seen the vision, but he started to be more consistent last year. And I think with this offense potentially taking a step forward, he could play a bigger role. And then on the other side of this matchup, I like to bring it back with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he's got a great chance to take a second year leap, and we'll start getting more utilization as he continues to develop and as Tyler Lockett ages. So I love really just stacking the pass catchers, the receivers specifically in this matchup. But on the value side, Matt, who do you think is the best value by ADP in this matchup?
Yeah, it's a fascinating one because Komet was my answer, but you already spoke on him. I mean, tight end 15 for a guy that was top 10 guy last year. Like I know there's more weapons, but that's still that's some fun value. So I'm gonna go with I think DeAndre Swift from where he's being drafted to where I think his upside could be. He's going up the board as running back 26th. Chicago again has a lot of weapons, right? And they have a lot of running backs, but I think the reason why they went out and got a Swift is they got a good look at the running backs they have and said, you know what? We have a bunch of average guys. We don't have, the guy. So I expect they'll be careful with Swift, with his health, but you're getting him maybe as your running back three or four. And I mean, he's proven time and time again that when used and healthy, he's dynamite. So getting him as your running back, we'll say again, 3 or 4, only has to do is, crack your starting lineup a couple times. And I think he has a real good chance of doing that.
Yeah, I like that. For me, my best ADP value, I've already mentioned him. I'm going to go back to the well on this one. It's JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He is wide receiver 44 on Underdog Fantasy right now. The thing that interests me the most about his value is he's being drafted right around the same age as a lot of rookies, as if this is his first year in the league. It's not. He had some great weeks last year, and he's going to be taking a step forward. And yet, he's being drafted behind guys like Brian Thomas, Lad McConkey, and Raul Madunze, I sort of get, but it's a very similar role. And yet JSN is in the second year of that role. They're both going to be probably the third best pass catchers in their offense, or the third target in their offense. And so I would rather take the value with JSN. He's just going ahead of Keon Coleman. I think that he has a better chance of taking a step forward and outperforming a lot of these rookies. But who is the biggest trap to you in this matchup?
Yeah, for me, you just said him, Roma Dunzi. What are the chances that a rookie quarterback, even though he's the first overall pick, can support all of the weapons, right? So we already know DJ Moore's a stud, right? They went and signed Keenan Allen, who I know is aging, and Dunzi's going to, surpass him soon, in terms of just, Keenan Allen just being old, right? But they went and got him. Cole Kmet has high potential. He's going to take some yardage there. And then you have, your decent running backs there. So I'm just concerned that Caleb Williams in his rookie year will not be able to support all of the guys. I feel like they are going to be playing the people they are paying in Moore and Allen. Moore, So yeah, he'll be the third best wide receiver, presumably on the Bears. But I just want to temper expectations with especially rookies in their rookie year.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to Jason last year. Like he was getting drafted pretty high, but he was always going to be the third option in that offense, and even sometimes the fourth option because they Seattle also utilizes the tight end. So I'm with you. I'm not huge on Rome Odunze this year. For me, the biggest trap is on the Seattle side. I think it's actually Kenneth Walker. I'm not sure how I feel about where he's being drafted right now. It's hard for me to feel good about him and confident at running back 16 because he gets injured. He hasn't played a full season yet, which concerns me on that front. And I I'm still reminded of the fact that they drafted Zach Charbonnet last year, and so they really have two guys that they could be the guy at any time. And Kenneth Walker struggled often a lot of like goal to go situations over the past couple of years. They still have used him, so like maybe that's a reason that I shouldn't be as pessimistic. But there are times where I'm like, you're on the 2 yard line, my guy. Get in the end zone, like it's right there. I feel very vested in this because I have him on one of my dynasty leagues, two of my dynasty leagues actually. So I have a lot of experience watching him not get into the end zone. And so it just scares me off on the ADP a little bit. It's hard for me to smash the button there. I will never say I've never drafted a player, so I will draft him some, but I'm not going overboard with Kenneth Walker this year. Matt, for you, what is the biggest question mark about these teams?
Yeah, I'll take it a different route than we normally take it. It's just where are they? Where are they in the standings at this point in the year? It's the penultimate week of the NFL season. The Bears, while there's a lot to be excited about, might be a bad team again as they sort of figure things out. The Seahawks, I think, is an even easier path to being a bad team. So who's even playing? Because if Gino has a rough start to the year, like I can see them going with someone younger just at the end of the year, which completely changes the Seattle Seahawks offensive strategy. The Bears, again, if they're bad, I'm assuming they'll still throw Caleb Williams out there. But who knows? I just don't know how much they'll be playing for and how hard they'll try. And if you add, a bad weather day, it's like it could be ugly.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. For me, the biggest question is how do these older players hold up, particularly these older receivers? There's been a lot of concern about Keenan Allen aging, getting close, hitting that age 30 year. There's clearly a lot of concern about Tyler Lockett aging. Those guys. So Keenan Allen is at wide receiver 33, even though he had an incredible season last year. And then Tyler Lockett is all the way down as wide receiver 54. Clearly, by ADP, people are expecting a step back. So my question is, do they actually take that step back? I could see both of them performing pretty well once again. So I also like them as values, but it will be interesting to see how do they hold up throughout the course of the season. Some other teams to target if you are drafting players from this matchup. Seattle plays Green Bay in week 15 and Minnesota in week 16, which we just covered that matchup, that week 17 matchup between the Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. So again, if you draft Seattle, Green Bay, and Minnesota, you're getting all sorts of correlation all throughout the playoffs of your underdog best ball tournaments. On the flip side, the Chicago Bears, they also play Minnesota in the playoffs. They play them in week 15. So again, you're getting a ton of correlation by drafting these teams. Chicago also plays Detroit in week 16, which I also really love because they have a really juicy week 17 matchup that we haven't talked about yet. So spoiler alert, that's one of our top two matchups that will be coming up soon. That is going to be all for this episode. Before you go, reminder to hit like and subscribe, turn on those notifications, and look out for our next video. We'll be breaking down our second favorite week 17 matchup, just 2 to go. For Matt Record, I'm Austin Amendolia. This has been Summer School. And remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football, and best ball makes money. See you next time.